so before I run back into this mix marathon that, is paying all of our bills, let me show you how I mix the choir vocals in this record. Listen.
You run on grace, grace. So many seed we plant, now them are resurrect.
Yo, that sounds very, 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 very heavenly. This is Run on Grace by my guy's guy, Lamborghini. Alright, and today I'm going to walk you through my process for mixing choir vocals to get these results. Do not be scared by the fact that we are doing this in Pro Tools, because you can apply the same technique in Logic or in FL or in Cubase or whatever DAW that you use. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So the first thing I normally do when I'm mixing a song is actually balance all the tracks without any compression, especially with the instrumentals, right? I would usually start by mixing the song and just doing gain staging, a little bit of surgical EQ to remove what I don't need, and then I'll try my best to get the song to sound as good as can possibly get without any compression first. And sometimes, but not all the time, I use similar approach for the vocals. What I would do usually is just balance out the levels of the vocals, do the panning, do pitch correction or melodyning if I need to, and that's usually what I'll do first. And then I would send everything to my vocal bus. Again, this is how I like to work, right? I like to send everything to a vocal bus and process everything as one giant unit. Okay, that's what we're doing here. And I've sent the vocals to this first bus here, the BGV sum. What I'm doing with this first bus is the first point that the vocals reach before they get to the main vocal bus. Picture it like this: you have the vocals come in, but before they get to the main vocal bus, there's a bus they have to go through first. Do you understand? It's like they have to pass through this tunnel before they get to the main vocal bus, which usually has the light at the end of the tunnel, or the sweet stuff, or the juiciness. Anyways, but there's a reason I'm doing that, okay? On the first bus, I'm doing a bit of multi-band compression, but I am only targeting frequencies between 3K to 6K. Sometimes I might go above 6K, sometimes I might go below 3K. But the main reason I'm doing this is because this frequency range is where the vocals usually tend to occupy. And what I'm doing with this multi-band compression here is to tame the background vocals so that even when the lead vocal and the background vocals are playing at the same time, the background vocals are essentially pushed to the background. Basically, let me show you how that works.
Run on grace, grace. So many seed we plant, now them are resurrect. You run on grace.
Right, so as you can see, every time the choir comes up, the compressor is ducking all of the frequencies that the choir vocals are currently occupying. So that way, you can hear the choir vocals, but you can still hear the lead vocals if you listen.
Grace. So many seed we plant, now them are resurrect.
Right, so that's the first thing I'm doing first. And the setting is actually very simple. I've set the ratios to 2:1. The attack is very fast because I want the compression to kick in as soon as the vocal starts playing, okay? And then the release is set to like 100 milliseconds. Really slow, so that when the compressor grabs the vocal frequencies, it's going to hold on to it for a long time, okay? And the knee is a hard knee. This is the very first thing I'm doing before any processing. Do you understand? So this is the first thing I do before I hit the main vocal bus. Now let's go over to the vocal bus. For the vocal processing, I'm approaching it the same way I normally approach vocals, right? Fix problems first. We have the noise suppressor to remove any noise, and then I have this neutron EQ to remove resonant frequencies. I'm going to leave a link here on how you can actually do this from scratch, and you can do this any EQ actually, but I prefer dynamic EQs because with dynamic EQs you can go in and set your threshold so that you are essentially not just reducing all of the frequencies in that range, okay? You're only going to be reducing frequencies that exceeds the threshold. Don't let it confuse you, but it's simple. And then we have the DSR to remove some sibilance.
So many seed we plant, now them are resurrect.
You can see that when all this comes up, it's doing its job, okay? Again, this is all the fixing problems portion of the vocal processing. And then we're going to go into EQing. Now with this EQ, I'm doing some tone shaping for the vocals, right? I'm still doing some cuts around the lows and the low mid and the high mid frequency. And then I'm doing a boost up to, I think this is up to like 2 dB, around 16 kilohertz for that air. At this stage, I'm putting back the air that the DSR might have sort of cut into. Do you understand? And then on the high mid frequency, I'm doing a cut up to -2 dB, around 3K. Around 3K is usually where there's harshness in the vocals, okay? And I've set the bell to a wide bell. So it's like a, you know what I'm saying? And then on the low mid frequency, I'm doing a cut up to, I guess you could say, -10 dB. That should be around 750 Hz or 0.750 kilohertz basically. And I've set the bell here to be a tighter one, so that way I'm not destroying the mid frequencies. I'm just trying to tame the harshness that I'm hearing around this frequency range. Okay, now in the low mid frequency, I'm doing a cut up to -10 dB, you know, around, I guess we can say 200 Hz. Okay, another thing I would suggest if you're using the SSLE channel strip EQ is to use the brown mode. I think the new Waves version of this has the brown mode, right? I mean, it should. Let's check. SSL EV2. Right, so the new Waves SSLE channel strip plugin has the brown and the black type, which is great because the brown sounds better for vocals, in my opinion. Do you understand? I like the way it sounds, but sometimes you might want the black. The black is more thin. I think the black sounds better for trap records actually, but the brown mode sounds thicker, and that's what I'm using for this record. And then the next plugin on the vocal chain is the first compressor. Again, I like to compress in series. So the first compressor is taming the peaks of the vocals.
You run on grace. So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Right, but if you notice, I'm actually doing a little bit of aggressive compression even with the first compressor. Sometimes you do what works for your record, but the main goal for the first compressor is to tame peaks. Especially for choirs, there's usually a lot of jumpy bits when people are singing. So that's what I'm doing here. And this is a Universal Audio 1176 Revision AE compressor. It's a fixed threshold compressor, so the more you drive into the input, the more compression you get, right? And you know, you set your input and output to taste. The mix is set to the max because I'm not doing many parallel compression. I usually just leave the headroom alone. And then I've set the attack to slow. Now this feature is something that this Revision AE version of this compressor has. It has a slower attack than the other versions of this compressor. When you select slow, it actually reduces the attack time to about 10 milliseconds, which is great for vocals. And I've set the release to be a very, very fast release. Okay, and then the ratio, you know, is 4:1, which is great for vocals. The meter is just at gain reduction, so I can see the amount of gain reduction I'm getting. And then we're going to the next plugin, which is the multi-band compressor. This is a 6.6 multi-band compressor from Waves, but you can do this with any multi-band compressor. I'm going to leave a link here to show you how you can actually use this compressor. This, in my opinion, is the secret sauce in my vocals. Let's solo the choir vocals, and I'm going to disable this so you can hear the difference that this plugin makes. So before, I'm going to bypass it.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Now with it on,
We run on grace.
you can hear how lush the vocals sound, right? This, in my opinion, is kind of like my secret weapon when it comes to mixing vocals. Right, so what I'm doing with this is actually just taming the low mids, adding a bit of clarity to the high mids, and boosting 10K and up to add air to the vocals. Now, this is where I do the main sculpting for my vocals. I'm going to leave a link so you can watch and see how to use this from scratch. Again, you can do this with any multi-band compressor, and you can do this in any DAW, so do not be scared by Pro Tools. I love Pro Tools, you understand? That's why I'm using Pro Tools, okay? And then the next plugin on the vocal chain is the LE2A. Now, this is the final compressor, and this is what I use to even out the performance of the vocals.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Right. As you can see, I'm doing some very hard compression here. I think we're getting up to -6 dB of gain reduction, right? Which is a lot, but sounds good for this record. Again, this is a fixed threshold compressor. The more you increase the peak reduction, the more compression you get. And then you can use the gain knob to add gain as needed, okay? You also have this mix knob here in case you want to do some parallel compression, right? But I'm not doing any of that here. Yeah, and that's it. It's a very, very straightforward compressor to use. And it also has a very slow attack time, which is about 10 milliseconds, which is great if you want to compress any sound source without losing your transient. Okay, like drums, vocals, bass, this is a very great compressor for that. And then the last plugin on the vocal chain is the RX10 DS. And again, you can use any DSR. I'm not even sure why I use this RX10 DSR for this vocal chain. Usually I like to use maybe the Nectar, and that's what I'm using for the lead, or the RDSR. Or my new favorite is the SPL DSR. It's actually quite mad. I've used it in a lot of new records that I mixed recently. It sounds very good. Now, the job of this RxDS is to capture any sibilance that would have built up due to all of the processing that we've done so far. It tends to happen sometimes. Let's bypass it so we can hear the difference.
So many seed we plant.
And then after.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
You know, it's just to smoothen out the vocals, just like the final polish. Do you understand?
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect. We run on grace. So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Right, we are now going to go into the time-based effects, which is the reverbs and the delay. And as you know, for choirs, that is very important. This is very important when you're mixing choir vocals or crowd vocals. Again, I like to work with two reverbs, right? The first reverb, the function of the room reverb basically is to add a little bit of cushioning between the vocals and the beat. Do you understand? Just to like uplift the vocals a little bit. And you don't need too much of the room reverb at all. You just need a little bit, right? I'm using the UAD Pure Plate. It sounds very good, but you can use any reverb plugin you want. Just make sure you're using the shortest reverb time and shortest pre-delay time, okay? And now let's go over to the next reverb, which is the main reverb. This is where it gets interesting for this song. Normally, I would just use maybe neo verb and, you know, set my long reverb time and be done with. Or any reverb basically and just set a long reverb time. But for this record, I am blending two different reverbs. Yes. Two different reverbs. So I've set up three different reverb buses actually. So on the first one I have the neo verb. On the second one there's the Mani M verb, but this one is, you know, set to bypass. I'm not using it, and you know, I've turned it all the way down as well. And then on the third reverb aux I have the Valhalla Supermassive. This is a free reverb. This is a very dope reverb. You should download it. Okay, this idea is something I got from, what's this guy's name? I've forgotten his name, but he's the one that makes Burna Boy's Last. So he does these things where he likes to combine reverbs and delay to kind of create a unique sound, which I think sounds very great. So I've set the input of these two reverb buses to the same background vocal bus. So essentially I'm sending signal from the vocal bus to these two reverb buses, reverb 1 and reverb 3, and I'm blending both of them to create the reverb sound that you're hearing for this record. Right? It sounds very, very, very good. Again, you can do this in Logic. I guess with Logic, you would need to create two sends, right? Like you would need to have the first send going into the first reverb bus and the second send going to the second reverb bus. But with Pro Tools, you can just feed the same input into different reverb buses and you're good to go, which is great. So that's what I'm doing here. Essentially combining two different reverb to create this unique sound, which, you know, in my opinion, sounds very good. And also on the top of each reverb bus, I have this EQ, and I'm doing a bit of a low cut and a high cut just to control the reverb. Usually when you do this, you are able to get a cleaner reverb sound. And then the next plugin on the choir vocal chain is my delay.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect. We run on grace.
I'm using the Nectar delay here. Again, you can use whatever delay you want. I've set the left channel to an 8 note and I've set the right channel to a quarter note. You know, just decent amount of feedback here. It has a saturation mode, right? And I've set that to analog and I'm doing a bit of saturation up to like 48%. And then from the vocal bus itself, I'm not even adding too much delay.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Right? It's not a lot, but it adds that whole 3D effect I'm going for the choir vocals, okay? And then the last send on the choir vocal chain is to my chorus bus. I'm using the doubler from Waves, and I'm just using this double voices preset, basically. I'm not doing too much to it. I don't think I did anything here. I can't remember, but yeah, so I'm using this double voices preset, and then I've set the send up to like minus 10 dB here. You know, just adding a bit of chorus to the choir effect to just widen it up a little bit. Right, that's crazy. You know what? Let's add all of these sends one by one and hear how the effect is actually changing the sound, right? Let's do that. Let's add the room reverb. You can see it lifts up a little bit. Now let's add the main reverb.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Now the delay. And then chorus.
So many seed we plant, now them a resurrect.
Beautiful, if you ask me. So that's all I've done for this choir vocals, and I hope that if you apply these same techniques to your own choir vocal mixes or crowd vocal mix, you can get amazing results as well. Okay, I'm going to leave a link below to the full record so you can go listen to it. It's actually a very, very dope record. So yeah, man, that's going to be it for now. I hope you got something from this as usual. And if you did, make sure you leave me a like and subscribe if you've not. And if you'd like to buy my vocal and mastering presets, I'm going to leave a link below so you can get them. These vocal presets sound just as amazing, okay? I have vocal presets with just wave plugins, vocal presets with just fab filter plugins, and vocal presets with a combination of both. By the way, next week I'm putting out new vocal preset for female artists, which, you know, you should watch out for. And if you'd like to book my services for mixing and mastering in stereo and Dolby Atmos, I'm going to leave a link below to the engineer's page so you can book my services there, or you can hit me up on Instagram at BennyMacaulayDB. Also, if you'd like to buy my Benny Macaulay and my Piano Essentials kit, I'm going to leave a link below as well. And if you're a Logic Pro user, upcoming artist or producer, and you like to record yourself, I'm going to leave a link below as well to a free Logic Pro recording template. Okay, it comes with a free Afrobeat vocal preset, right? All stock plugins. Okay, so all you need is Logic to have a great time. So yeah, man, that's going to be for now. I hope you got something from this, and I shall see you on the next one. Benny Macaulay out.